Are you ready for the truth? Bring it on!
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Do you want the whole truth?
I don't think you're ready.
Governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people.
It's Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.
Welcome back. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk. You forgot the book, Crane? Yes, I realize that. That would be Separated at Birth, How North Korea Became the Evil Twin. The other selection, written for those who served in the Forgotten War by our good friend, Lieutenant Colonel Gordon Kakula. Now, we have the privilege and the honor to be joined by Karen Vaughn. She is the founder for Our Son, Gold Star Mother. She is the mother of Aaron Carson Vaughn, who was one of America's most elite warriors. And she is from the Concerned Veterans for America. She just got off the Defend Our Freedom tour. And she and her husband have written the book Betrayed. And she joins us now on this Veterans Day. Karen, thank you for taking the time.
No, hi, Crane, and thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your program tonight.
Absolutely. What is your message for those of us who want to serve veterans?
With Concerned Veterans for America, they brought me on because I am a Gold Star mother. My son lost his life in Afghanistan on August 6, 2011. And I love the organization Concerned Veterans for America because they have included the families of veterans, those of us who raised the people who have gone out and fought, and those who married the people who went out and fought, and those who are the children of those who went out and fought. So really they're encasing a whole demographic here and allowing us to be involved in something very tender and very, very, very important to us as family members. And, the message is our veterans deserve more than we're giving them as a nation. That's the core message from Concerned Veterans for America. And also, we as patriots, as red-blooded, loving American citizens, need to understand that America is in a desperate condition right now, and who better to lock arms, to come together, strap up their boots one more time than veterans. And I tell you, I say to people when I speak across the country, Aaron, my son, is gone. I can no longer lock arms with him, but there is no group of people in America that I would rather lock arms with, that I would trust more to have the back of this nation than the men and women who put their name on that dotted line and said that they would give everything up to their life to preserve our nation as we know it. So that's my message with Concerned Veterans for America. Now, For Our Son is a whole different thing, and we can talk about that if you'd like, but we don't have to. It's Veterans Day, and I just want to honor the veterans.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would like to talk about it with you. We will go to the general right now in the sense of the Veterans Day. It is Veterans Day, and we want to honor those who have served and continue to serve. And we also want to honor, obviously, in that, your son who paid the ultimate price. Let's go to, for so many of us who have not served, and we see what the military has provided for, not just in 2013, but throughout our lives. And we want to make a difference. We've got American Family Radio, Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. This audience engages, boom, right away. They do what they can. They hear something, the call to action. What specifically can we do today to help our veterans deserve and get the credit, the services that they have been promised and desire?
Well, there are a whole scope of things that Concerned Veterans for America works on, a whole scope of issues, and it's so broad spread, and I appreciate you asking that question so much, but it's so broad spread that I would say the best thing that your listening audience can do is go to the Concerned Veterans for America website. That's cv4a.org, and take a look at all the different programs that they have working, all the different training mechanisms they have in place, so that we can all be working on the same thing at the same time. You know, there's legislation that needs to be passed. There are leadership positions that need to be changed and altered dramatically. You know, the backlog at the VA is something that is a black mark on American history right now. We've got over 600,000 claims that are almost 9 months old. And, you know, I use the word claims, and then every time that word comes out of my mouth, I get very disturbed by my own words, because they're not claims. They were human beings who volunteered to serve this country, to defend and protect this country, while we went about our business having barbecues and celebrating with our family and enjoying birthdays and Christmas while they're on foreign soil. And you know, they're not claims, they're human beings, and we need to start looking at that. And Crane, if I can say one thing that I think is going on in America that's the most detrimental thing happening today, is that we have disengaged from this war. When we think of veterans so often on the holidays where we celebrate veterans in America, we show images of World War I and World War II and sometimes Vietnam, but we do not show images of bodies coming home from Afghanistan and Iraq. And I think the media in general thinks the American people can't handle it, maybe. I don't know what exactly the reason is here, but because of the lack of media attention for this current war, we are completely disengaged in it. And because of that, men and women are coming home after they've served this country. They can't find jobs. They can't even feed their families. You know, I'm in New York City tonight. We've been doing television and radio all day today. Here, my husband and I have, about our book. And one thing I found out today is that in New York City alone, 40% of the veterans will eat at a soup kitchen. 40% of the veterans in New York City will eat at the soup kitchen through these holidays. That is an atrocious mark on our nation, and we must change it. And my means of change is go to the Concerned Veterans for America website, take action along with us, act at the same time we act, and we'll lock arms and get these things changed. We can do this, and we can do better.
And we can do better. And I know that there are churches, Veterans Outreach, that have Veterans Outreach and are doing what they can. But what it sounds like is Concerned Veterans for America, if you go there, they are going to be a great resource on how to channel our energies and whatever they may be to
That's
helping
the
veterans.
That's
yeah.
the key, is doing it together, doing it in mass, not one group doing this and one group doing that, but coming together in mass over specific issues. And if we join forces like that, we can make a difference. There's 20 million veterans in America right now, 20 million. And that's just the veterans. You take their families, and you're probably well over 100 million. And that is a voting block. It's an astronomical voting block to make change in this country for the better. You know, Concerned Veterans for America is just as strategically interested in reclaiming the America that I raised my son in, the America that made my son want to go and fight and even die for her. You know, when we've lost that in this country, and I love the name of your program, you know, because truth is the only thing we've got left to rescue us. And so we are binding together, we are locking arms, and we are speaking truth at the right time and in the right place to affect change in this nation.
Karen, will you tell me about your son, Aaron?
I would love to. You know, the most important thing that I can tell anybody about my son is that he gave his life to Christ at a very young age. And, you know, because of that, he had a discernment that was very uncharacteristic of a young boy. And the thing that I can tell you is he knew the difference in right and wrong. And even more importantly, he knew and understood that there was evil in this world, that there were things that needed to be confronted, that there were things you could not turn your back on, that you had to address in order to protect those you loved in your way of life. And, you know, from the time Aaron was 8 years old, he'd tell anybody who cared to listen that one day he was going to be a Navy SEAL. And, you know, he overcame unimaginable odds to accomplish that dream. None of us ever honestly thought he could do it, but he not only did it, he graduated at the top of his class. His name is on a plaque in Coronado, a plaque that's called First Time Every Time, which means every single evolution that was required of him he completed the first time he tried it. And I will tell you that that's because God created Aaron to be a warrior. That's what he was made for. Aaron always knew it. He always was grateful he got to do it. And, we have no regrets over the life he chose. We have no regrets over the course he took. And we're thankful to God that Aaron got to do what he was created to do. Very few of us actually know at such a young age what it is we're meant to be and follow that through. And I have so much respect for that boy because he was able to do that, able to follow it through. And, we wouldn't change a thing except for the fact that he lost his life, of course. That's been a bitter pill to swallow. But it does not change 1 ounce of our pride for this nation, of our pride for his willingness to fight and die for this nation.
Not only is it the loss of your son, but you said a bitter pill. Obviously, we sit back and it's tough to fathom that we can't unless somebody has gone through it to hear that you've lost your son or daughter, and you have, and he had direction, he had his purpose. The Lord creates us for what his purposes, and when we align and we go, and it's amazing. And yet, when he died in 2011, August 6th, 2011, 3 months, I believe, a little after Osama bin Laden was killed, Navy SEAL. And if you wouldn't mind, tell us the story and why you entitled the book Betrayal. Betrayed, pardon me, Betrayed.
Betrayed, yes. That's fine. Betrayed, the shocking true story of Extortion 17 as told by a Navy SEAL's father. And the reason we wrote the book is because Aaron was killed in a helicopter shoot-down that never should have happened. And again, I want to reiterate to your listeners and to you that I am not a bitter mother. I don't hate war. I understand that it's necessary. I understand that people die in war. I've never been naive about what Aaron's chances were of losing his life based on the choice he made of what he would do with his life. But what I can say is that in the shoot-down of Extortion 17, 30 Americans lost their life. And it was a completely reckless, unnecessary loss of life brought about by rules of engagement that this current administration has implemented on the battlefield of Afghanistan. And if I can just run some numbers, because the whole point of this book is fact, truth.
Here, and let me tell you, just real quick here, let me tell you, we've got about 10 minutes. So the time is yours to tell your story. And please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. What we learned is that in 2009, our administration decided to implement what's called the COIN strategy in the Afghanistan war. That is the counterinsurgency strategy. And let me just put it in a nutshell. What that means is we decided to win hearts and minds rather than wars. We turned it into a diplomatic positioning, a political game, if you will. And when we did that, we started costing American lives on the battlefield. And, my husband has a phrase that he uses very often is the back door that our government has opened on our war fighters is way bloodier than the front-on war that they're fighting. And we like to say, in all honesty, and I want to be very clear here, this is not a political issue. This is an American issue. I cannot help it that the man that occupies the White House right now, that our commander-in-chief is a Democrat. That makes no difference to me. If he was a Republican, I would be saying the same things. I want to make that very clear. This is an American tragedy, and we must address it as Americans, not Democrats or Republicans or libertarians. This is an American issue. I want to make that very clear. But what happened is the COIN strategy, upon its implementation, the death toll skyrocketed in Afghanistan because we started allowing the Afghans to have a say in what we did over there. And that's a very simplified explanation, but it's the best I can do. And what happened is, in 9 prior years, we had lost 1,000 American soldiers in Afghanistan. It only took 27 months of this implementation to lose the next 1,000. And what I say is numbers don't lie. Numbers tell the truth. Another astounding numbers that are before us is the wounded in action, from roadside bombs, from IEDs where our soldiers see a person plant a roadside bomb and we're not allowed to engage them unless they fire on us. This is nonsense. So we have to try to go behind them and dismantle bombs, and we're losing soldiers because we're not allowed to stop the process. We have to work on the process after it takes place. And Billy and I just, well, let me just tell you, the wounded in action numbers, they increased by 997% on an annual average basis. That is an astronomical cost of life, an astronomical cost of the human condition, and it is completely unacceptable and completely unnecessary. And all of this at the hands of a nation-building administration who does not have the back of our warriors, who has chosen to befriend the Afghanis over protecting those men and women who choose to go serve our nation to protect us. And, you know, it's unacceptable. And Billy and I, the things that we learned when we began exploring the death of our son and began hearing stories from other parents were so startling that it compelled us to write this book called Betrayed.
What happened that night, if you wouldn't mind?
On that particular night, what happened was the Rangers had been called in to capture a high-value Taliban target. His name was Kari Tahir, and they had located him in a village in the south end of the Tangi River Valley. And after 3.5 hours of an extreme firefight in that valley, the Navy SEALs were called in as a quick reactionary team because Kari Tahir, that target, had evaded the escape by the Rangers. And what we learned that night was our strong speculation, we cannot prove it, but with all of our hearts we believe it to be true, that the SEALs were ambushed, that news had gotten through the Taliban, that people were alerted, and a setup was put in place, and the chopper was shot down as it was landing with a triangle of Taliban fighters around the landing zone that should have been private, but because of a special agreement that we have with the Afghan government, between an actual agreement between Hamid Karzai and our President Barack Obama, this group that oversees the Afghan warfighters that fight alongside our warriors is not allowed to be vetted. We're not allowed to vet them. And this is something that is astounding to learn as a parent of a soldier that is working alongside these Afghanis. And what we believe is we believe that information was leaked through this group that has this special agreement. We believe the landing zone was given away because we know that this specific group, the organizational cooperation group in Afghanistan, has our landing zones, they have our flight routes, they know all the ins and outs of our special operators' missions. And what's really sad about that is just a year prior, on Aaron's last deployment that he had before he was killed in 2011, he was telling us, Mom and Dad, we don't ever tell these guys where we're going until we get there, because if we do, we know somebody will be alerted, or they may not fight because they know somebody who's there, or, you know, all sorts of different issues. And fast forward to 2011, the OCG, the Organizational Coordination Group in Afghanistan, has all of this information on our warriors. And what it basically boils down to is we are lending our warriors to the Afghan government. And Billy and I believe with all of our heart, if Americans knew what was happening here, the outrage would be so strong that it would have to stop. And that's the cry of our heart. You know, we can't do a thing in the world to bring Aaron back. And to finish that story, as the quick reactionary force was coming in, they were about 30 seconds from landing. They were hovering, trying to get into their landing zone. And 3 RPGs were fired out of the dark into the dark. 2 missed, but 1 made contact in what the military called a 1 in a million shot. And it hit the rotor blade, on the aft pylon, which is the rear part of the helicopter, ripped off about 10.5 feet of one blade. The chopper tore itself apart almost instantly and crashed to the ground in a massive explosion. And we lost 30 American soldiers in that one shoot down. And like I said, the terrible thing is, upon deeper investigation, we have learned that it never should have happened in ways that I can tell you very clearly. First off, our Tier 1 operators, SEAL Team 6, they were being flown into battle that night on a CH-47D Chinook chopper that was built in the early 1960s. Back when my parents were getting married, Aaron's grandparents were getting married, that's when that chopper was built. And it was last retrofitted in the early 1980s. And not only that, they were on that really old cargo chopper, not a special operations chopper, not the kind of helicopter that special operators do dangerous infiltration missions into a heated battle zone in. Not like that, but on top of that, they were denied pre-assault fire. They were not allowed to have any pre-assault fire because we've been told by military leaders pre-assault fire damages our efforts to win the hearts and minds of
And
the
this
Afghanis.
and since this has obviously taking place, have the pardon me, just for time purposes, Karen, have the rules of engagement changed?
No, they have not, and that's why we do what we do. That's why we do everything that we do, because they have not changed, and people are dying, and we get stories continuously from people whose children were killed in green on blue attacks, which means the Afghanis working with us have slaughtered the American soldiers that are being forced to work alongside the Afghanis who cannot be trusted. Nothing's changing, and it must change. This is unacceptable, and Americans would not stand for this if they understood what was going on.
Karen Vaughn, thank you. Thank you for what you've been as a mother, as an advocate, and obviously we can't express how grateful we are for Aaron's service and ultimate price that he paid for this country. The only thing we can do is to make sure we honor him by honoring those who have served and continue to serve. And to do that, concerned Veterans for America, we could also learn the truth about what's going on, because we've dealt with military scandals in the sense of Benghazi, and we hit that fairly regularly here. We're not going to stop. But again, when there are things that you've just mentioned and that you've been writing about with Betrayed, the shocking true story of Extortion 17 as told by a Navy SEAL's father, we have an obligation to pursue that and get answers as you have done, and we will be talking to you more in the future about this. I want to say thank you. You made time for us tonight, and what a blessing it is to speak with you. And no, politics is not R's and D's, or excuse me, politics may be R's and D's and libertarian and all that. This is about America and who we are and what your son represented and did, being a great liberator. And we just want to say thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I certainly do appreciate it.
You take care.
Bye-bye.
Karen Vaughn. And you can go check out her book. It is Betrayed, the shocking true story of Extortion 17 as told by Navy SEAL's father. Obviously, this man was extraordinary, and we're dealing with an extraordinary mother, Gold Star mother, concerned Veterans for America. I didn't get to everything, obviously, but I just want to end the program tonight and say thank you to those who have served and are continuing to serve, and your families. We can't express how much you mean to us and what you've done for us, but we are grateful. Praying to us nothing but truth. AFR Talk.